John Islone here for the New York Video Game Critics Circle, and we're in downtown sunny Soho, New York, checking out Gearbox and 2K's Battleborn. I'm here with Randy Varnell, who is the creative director on Battleborn, which is a new game, kind of calling it like a game hybrid slash meld of multiple other games.
Hero-Shooter.
Hero-Shooter.
We call it.
Hero-Shooter. Hero-Shooter is exactly what they're calling it. And it looks really fun. I mean, like, taking a lot of influences from other genres and kind of bringing them all into one leaves for a lot of creative direction. Look at that segue.
Oh, yeah, it does. I mean, we're really looking at a lot of ways to mix it up. You know, with Borderlands, we really explored a lot of characters and a lot of enemies, and it certainly mixed shooter and looter and RPG together, and we're fusing some other things. You know, we're coming back to multiplayer for the first time in a long time. We're certainly just exploding that character promise out of the gate. You know, Borderlands had like every other game's gun in it. And we're looking at characters to really find that diversity. What are the character gameplays that we like from a lot of different types of games and a lot of different genres? And how can we put that back into a game that has both that big campaign and also some competitive multiplayer?
Right, you're coming off a game like Borderlands, Borderlands 2, and all the DLCs that rely heavily on the campaign, but you guys are actually revisiting multiplayer for the first time in years. So how is that affecting the creative process? Do you find that to be cathartic, as some of you guys used, or?
You know, it is. You know, the game really, we're bringing back in multiplayer, but honestly, it all comes back to those characters. You know, that's why we call it a hero shooter. We love character gameplay. In Borderlands, we went really deep. You had a lot of ways to customize a character through talent trees and skins and all of that. But we wanted to make more. You know, we only had 6 playable characters in Borderlands 1 or Borderlands 2. In a pre-sequel, we added another 4. We wanted to go wide on that. We've already announced 9 for Battleborn, and we want to make a lot more, you know, than that as we go along. So, yeah, coming back to that and just being creative with every character and all of that. Sure, multiplayer is a neat new thing. We didn't have any of that in Borderlands, and it's cool to bring that back in. But also, a game that has that character promise, being able to play that through the campaign and finding different ways to play an array, a cast of characters in campaign play has been really, really exciting.
Right. You guys mentioned working on Halo and working on Counter-Strike, bringing the competitive multiplayer builds back into the competitive multiplayer scene. So bringing Battleborn into the competitive multiplayer scene, do you hope to see it through to something super competitive, kind of like how we're seeing esports go now, or?
I hope so. It's really hard to say, you know, because it takes a lot of time and a lot of balance and tuning. And we're certainly putting a lot of effort between being sure that in competitive play, our characters, our Battleborn, are very balanced in one another. I mean, you have different archetypes and different play styles, right? You have got your tanky guy and your damagey guy and your supporty guy and all of that. And in some ways, you know, every character is its own class now, so it's a big problem. But what we love to do is, and we're working on, you know, back-end support of thinking about how we statistically balance the characters. They're being balanced. Design. You heard design director John Mulkey talk about balancing the characters and creating them from a very procedural. Procedural is not the way to say it. A very I can't say the word.
Methodical.
Yeah, he's got
mythological.
I like mythological. He's got a really, really super design method on how to do that, and all of our designers are working with that to be sure that from the ground up, the characters are balanced. And then we do a lot of stats tracking, even right now in development. We're in pre-alpha, but right now as we play internally and all of that, we're really looking at how all of our characters move and mesh and compete together and against one another, and to be sure it's as balanced as possible. We'd love to see where it can go.
Creating these characters, influences are coming from everywhere. I mean, you have 9 characters now, and there's going to be plenty more characters to come. So where are you guys drawing your influences for those characters? It seems like everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, Gearbox, we play a ton of different games, a lot of them from all sorts of genres and all sorts of, you know, PC and consoles alike. We also play a ton of board games as much as it's so, you know, characters that are immersed both in different types of action. You know, you have Thorn with a bow, you know, it hits that elven archetype, and, you know, it's that great bow play. We wanted to be sure that the bow feels good and moves, and it gives you that great kind of really powerful single shot sniper. But that aspect of what does it feel like to be a lithe and jumpy and bouncy elf, you know, it's so awesome to do that in first person, because that awesome map flow of moving through the environment, of jumping off stuff and feeling you kind of glide through the air while you're pulling the bowstring in midair and do that. It not only ties from video games, but I mean, you go back to like Legolas in Lord of the Rings, who has those scenes where he surfs the shield down the stairs and all of that. How can we translate that to movement, and how can we translate that to combat? So we're really pulling from a lot of different things, a gameplay like a Space Marine. We've got this guy Caldarius, who's in the Armored Space Marine, who finishes jump jets. There's a little 40K influence in that, of taking that Space Marine jet play, and I jet pack up and slam down and all that, in that. Wrath, a swordsman, really pulls from, we talked about Soul Calibur and some of those, even almost Zelda-esque, that melee gameplay that really focuses on quick melee combos, but getting that melee, that timing swing down where you can do kind of a bigger move and hit more things around you. So
a lot of the writing and the influences are humor. Obviously, that's something you guys are well versed in with Borderlands and Borderlands 2. How was it accepting humor as your guys' fate once again in a fantastic way?
Well, we wanted definitely wanted a game where you're looking at kind of into the universe. There's big stakes, right? But man, it's these bright and vivid characters, and it's hard not to explore kind of that narrative latitude, to use a big phrase and all that. Characters that, some of them that are very serious and to the point, like Wrath. And then guys like Montana, who's the big jovial guy that kind of runs into combat. Hey, I just want everybody to know I'm having a good time, as he fights and all that. So I think we've taken a lot of inspiration. There have been a lot of great superhero movies in the last few years that have really shown us in movies that you can still have cosmic galactic stakes, the universe is at stake, but characters that are still able to have one-liners and really quick witticisms and all that and bring it back in. So, the cool thing here is every character can be different, and we can really work to give customers and our players those experiences that I want to be serious today. I want to be Wrath. I want to be, or Thorn. I'm really focused. I'm really dedicated. Or I'm kind of in a goofy mood. So, gravitating to Montana, still having a good time with gameplay, but really pick characters that reflect not only, what gameplay you like, but the mood you're in to play. That's really awesome.
Great. I'd look forward to seeing it come down the pipeline. Randy, thanks so much.
Thank you.
John from the New York Video Game Critics Circle, checking out Battleborn.
Battleborn.
I almost called it Battletoads.
Battleborn.
You wish. I'm here with Aaron Linde, lead writer of Battleborn, new IP coming from Gearbox and 2K. What I want to talk to you a little bit about, Aaron, is the narrative. Since you are the lead writer, I would assume you have, dominance in that field, right?
That's a safe assumption.
A safe assumption, right?
Yeah.
So we heard a little bit about the kind of this universe-ending cataclysmic event that's happening in Battleborn. That's the overarching narrative, where all the stars are disappearing. What happens next? Tell me the story from front to back.
Okay, yeah. This will be a somewhat long interview, but yeah, we'll just get through it. Okay, so here's the scene 1, act 1. No, well, basically, yeah, and what we've been talking about with the scenario of the last star and all of these civilizations coming to arriving at Solus and trying to carve out some kind of existence. That's our setup point, and what we're really excited about is all the different ways in which these very, very different civilizations are going to be interacting, and all the characters that represent them, all the ways in which they view this universe and view the scenario that they're kind of stuck in. It's a lot of really interesting conflict, a lot of really interesting, and I'm a huge nerd. I'm into all the cosmology stuff. Carl Sagan is like my favorite person ever.
He was dropping big words during when they were talking. It was scaring me a little.
Oh, is that right? Okay, I apologize for that.
Speak dumber.
Space. Space is scary and black and stuff. It's really dark, and there ain't no more stars. So we're into all of that. So the idea of exploring a lot of those themes, both with gameplay that we're familiar with and that we really enjoy, with a lot of really new gameplay that we're really excited to put in front of people, and characters that we're really passionate about. We're stoked to be telling that story.
So, being that you have these kind of faction civilizations coming together, you mentioned characters specifically. Mm-hmm. Now, once these characters come together, are there kind of these exclusive narratives to each character as we're going through the game? As we play through different characters, obviously, and as the universe expands with more characters, should we expect to be introduced to sort of just these single-player gameplay beats as we play the cooperative, or even as we play the multiplayer?
We're exploring a lot of different ways in which to tell this story, both through the lens of those individual characters and through the lens of the. We have a crew of NPCs that we're going to be rolling with throughout the campaign that we're going to be seeing surface elsewhere in the game, and that in combination with the ways in which these characters are going to be reacting to these moments, and there is going to be sort of a personal narrative that they're going to be spinning through it, because these are characters that have really rich backstories. These are characters that have relationships. They're characters that have fought together and fought against one another, and now they find themselves like united in this conflict. So we're looking for a bunch of different ways to explore how those stories intersect and clash in interesting ways. And there's going to be a lot of really cool stuff that we're going to be throwing at people.
So when talking about the rich backstories of the characters, are there any in particular that you can talk about? And looks like your marquee character out in the front there, in front of the logo, is Thorn, right?
Yeah.
Who's kind of an elvish. What's the backstory on there? If you can provide any details.
Yeah, sure. So Thorn is she's part of the Eldred faction, and the Eldred are a very expansive civilization. Their whole deal is documenting and sort of charting the natural arc of the cosmos. They consider themselves watchers and observers, and Thorn is a bit of an outlier in that respect, because we saw a bit of Ekinar today in the multiplayer video. That's the wilds of Ekinar. That's where she was sort of that's where she came of age. That's where she learned how to fight and such. And at the time that was very, very distant from the Eldred Empire. So a lot of that respect that the Eldred show for the natural order and a lot of the things that they revere in terms of nature and the cosmos and such, she doesn't necessarily hold quite as dear. She's much more of a shoot first and ask questions later kind of girl. And so the way that she embraces those ideas and the conflict that sort of arises of it, that's sort of the core of her story and her narrative that we're looking to tell.
What about what was the LLC character's name that you guys kind of showcased today?
Marquis.
Marquis?
Yeah, Marquis de Caliber. Yeah.
De Caliber?
Marquis de Caliber, yeah.
I think
appropriately fancy for a character like that.
Definitely fancy. Dapper, I think you guys used the word.
Dapper, yeah.
I think we all want to know what the name of the owl was that he used.
Houdini.
Houdini?
Houdini.
Spelled with a W-H?
Yeah, not mine. I can't take responsibility.
You didn't write that?
No. That was actually that came about before I got there. So, and I loved it. I was just like, okay, that works. It's appropriately adorable because the owl is just.
It's in the hat.
It's in the hat. It's the cutest thing you've ever seen in your life. It's like I don't want to use it because I'm just like, no, I'm just gonna stare at you for a while. You and me, bro. We're just hanging out. I can't keep my mind on the battle just because I'm just staring into his eyes.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I can't wait to play as Marquis. I think he's gonna be my guy because I usually try to rock a top hat and a monocle when I hang out sometimes.
Yeah.
Steampunk movement, I guess.
Yeah, that could work.
Not really.
You can pull it off.
You think I could?
I think so.
I think I
More
could.
so than me.
All right, great. Aaron, thanks so much for hanging out today.
Much.
John from the New York Video Game Critics Circles, thanks so much, guys, for hanging out. Make sure to check out Battleborn. So I'm here with Harold Goldberg, founder of the New York Video Game Critics Circle, and we just got a chance to take a look at Gearbox and 2K's new IP, Battleborn. So we don't have really much information on this before today. All we saw was some influences from MOBA titles, arena shooters, first-person shooters. They're kind of calling it a what are they calling it again, Harold? A
hero shooter.
A hero shooter is what they're kind of calling it. So, Harold, recently a lot of your work has been covering competitive multiplayer games. Did you take anything away from Battleborn that kind of led you in the direction that this could possibly be the next big thing?
I don't know if it can be the next big thing. I mean, what we're seeing is pre-alpha, and it's kind of a promising start. But what we're seeing, the riff I see here on, say, Dota 2 or maybe League of Legends, is kind of a first-person perspective on MOBAs. So that's kind of interesting to me. And they're hitting it at the right time because we're seeing esports explode. I was just at PAX, and then before that in Paris at the League of Legends All-Star Games. And when you go into one of those matches, it's stunning at how into it and loud people can get. It's really like a rock show on steroids or something.
Right.
So if they can kind of get into that mode and maybe get this going as an esport and competitive gaming, I think they're really on the right track. Plus, they have a single player campaign as well and the narrative looks interesting. But as far as competitive gaming and possible esport, they're on the right track.
I think so too. I think what's even good about this is they're building a good foundation with narrative and with gameplay, and they're really heavily focused, not really just trying to cash in on the current trends, but they're really building a solid foundation. And I think their tertiary goal is going to be getting to the esports crowd. Like you mentioned today, you had a question to them: was that the end game for them? Was that their goal? And they said something like,
they said that they'd be happy for it to be a goal. So I think that's good. I think that's in their mind. I think that perhaps is in every video game company's mind, because you can't deny the explosion of Dota 2 and League of Legends. And if people can mine that, and if there could be possibly like an esports commissioner or something like that that oversees all of them, I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon. It'd be really interesting for games and for competition as well.
That's definitely an interesting thought. All right, Harold, thank you so much for hanging out with us today.
Yeah, thanks, John.
Thanks a lot, appreciate it. This is John Isloda from the New York Video Game Critics Circle. We'll see you next time.